Hi, I'm Dr. Brian Huffling. I've been teaching here at Apologia Online Academy for 6 or so years. I'm also a professor at Southern Evangelical Seminary, and I'm an Air Force Reserve chaplain. And I wanted to just spend a few minutes today talking to you about some of the classes I teach here at Apologia Online Academy. I teach 4 classes. One is Logic and Thinking Like a Christian. The other is Philosophy and Ethics, and I teach Latin 1 and Latin 2. So let me go through those real quick, just to kind of give you some highlights as to what those classes are all about and see if you're interested in taking them or not. So Logic and Thinking Like a Christian. So the fall semester is Logic and the spring semester is Thinking Like a Christian. They're all broken down like that by semesters. So the first semester is Logic, and we go over both informal and formal logic. If there was one class I'd say is one of the most important to take as a high schooler or even a middle schooler, I would say it's Logic. In fact, if there was one class that has changed my life more than any other class, it's been Logic. Logic is very powerful. As one of my colleagues used to say, it made the blinders fall from his eyes. It's just amazing. I don't understand why we don't teach Logic anymore in general education, because it's so powerful. It's universally applicable. We're not all going to be historians or ethicists or philosophers or scientists or anything like that, but we should all be good and clear thinkers. And so our schools and teachers want us to be able to think well and to write well, and they don't always tell us how to do each individual of those things. Like we're taught how to write pretty well. We could do better in reading a lot of times. There's a lot of ways to read better. But we're not taught how to think better a lot of times. That's what Logic is all about. So the class is about how to take just normal everyday language that you hear on the news or from politics or from reading a textbook or whatever, and be able to translate that into a logical argument so you can analyze it, right? And then be able to evaluate if it even is able to be put into an argument. Sometimes some things are so incoherent that you can't even put them into an argument. They're just a mess. And so we want to be able to take what we can and put them in arguments and evaluate them to see if they're any good or not. Okay, so that's what Logic does. But also, it'll help your children to be able to not only think better, but to communicate better, both in a written form and an oral form. Because if you think more logically, it really helps your papers, for example, or if you're giving a presentation, or if you're doing a debate for sure. You want to be able to have a logical flow, whether that's more of an inductive or a deductive approach. So your thinking should be clearer, your reasoning should be clearer. So if your children can take, or if you're a student watching this, if you want to learn how to think better, how to write better, you need to take Logic. Not because I'm teaching it, but because you need to take it, and I am the one who teaches it here at school. So take the class. This is the class I'm going to have my children take. I'm about to have my daughter take this as well. She's about at time to take this. So the other half is called Thinking Like a Christian, or TLAC. It's pretty much kind of like a worldview type class. You go through all the logical stuff in the fall, and then we kind of apply it in the spring to, okay, here are all these different issues. All right, we've got some big worldview issues. What does God exist? What is He like? If God exists, and how does that influence my view of ethics and politics and history and all that kind of stuff? What are some various issues in theology? Like Christians should have an understanding of things like the Trinity, incarnation, sin, salvation, that kind of stuff. But also, how should I behave? Ethics. We don't spend the whole semester like we do in the actual ethics class, but we spend 2 or 3 weeks or so going over just ethical theories and different ethical positions, and like abortion, homosexuality, those kind of major issues that are in our face today and in the culture. And then stuff like, how does science or reason relate to my faith? So these are all in. How should Christians think about not only Christian stuff like theology and all that kind of stuff, but how should I take my Christianity and apply it to my politics or my ethics or just my view of the world around me? And how does this affect my day-to-day life? Not just, okay, I'm a Christian at church, I'm a Christian here and there, but when I'm doing things that aren't quote-unquote in the church walls or whatever, how does that really affect me? So how should I think like a Christian? That's my first class I teach, or one of them. Another class I teach is philosophy, which goes in the fall, and ethics, which goes in the spring. So philosophy, we look at things that are, again, philosophy is universally applicable. because we're all going to be good historians or philosophers or scientists, whatever. But we can think well, and studying philosophy will help us to think well as well. So it's not just logic, but being able to analyze things philosophically, to take complex issues, arguments, whatever, and to be able to break them down logically and philosophically to see what's making them what they are, and then how to analyze them. So philosophy is universally applicable. It's being able to read through philosophy and learn how to think philosophically will help us to be more thoughtful, think more logically, think through complex issues clearly. Again, it'll help us be much better communicators, whether we're giving an oral, some kind of oral communication, like a presentation, a speech, debate, whatever, or even in a written form, like papers, you're writing an article above, or you're just doing an essay for class or whatever. And these are the kind of skills that are not just important for class, but really in whatever job you get, you're going to have to be able to communicate, and you want to be able to communicate well, again, whether that's in an oral or a written form. And all this stuff with philosophy and even thinking like a Christian has a lot of an apologetic value. So we're trying to. I used to be a youth pastor, and one of the things that I think the church oftentimes does not do overly well is to prepare children and youth for outside the church, college, whatever. And these courses will really help do that. Of course, we have apologetic courses that Mr. Blythe teaches and so on. Those are great courses. And these will do kind of the same thing in terms of we're going to look at these various major issues and see, well, how should Christians think about this? How should philosophy and all this stuff inform our Christianity? And how can we defend our Christianity through reasoning and all that kind of stuff? Looking at Scripture and putting it all together to have a thoughtful Christian faith. And in ethics, we look at how does God relate to ethics and morality, look at various views of the good and what the good means. So if I say X is good or not good, what does that mean even to be good or not good? And of course, we look at various ethical topics. Again, abortion, homosexuality are major ones, but others as well, like capital punishment, war, political type stuff. And so we get into all that kind of thing in ethics. And in my courses, I really like to encourage discussion. So these courses are heavy on the lecture side, but I like to bring the students in. I even like students to turn their microphones on and have a conversation to make it interesting, to make sure they're understanding it, and just to have fun, because these courses really lend themselves well to more of a discussion. Not just hearing me talk, but to have the students interact. They can disagree. We can walk through things together, and just ask a lot of questions and then learn a lot from the course. I also teach Latin 1 and 2. I've been going through Wheelock's material. In the first year, we cover the first 20 chapters. We cover 10 chapters per semester. So in Latin 1, the first semester, we cover the first 10 chapters. In the second semester, the next 10, and so forth for the second year. So it's a 2-year program. There's a lot of reasons to learn Latin. Some of my students have said they want to learn it because they want to get the vocabulary for standardized tests, or they're going to go into a field of study like medical or law or whatever, that's heavily based in Latin, and they want to be able to learn. And some people just like learning Latin. I enjoy languages. I took several languages when I was in school, and Latin's a lot of fun. I use it a lot because in my area of philosophy of religion, I do a lot of stuff in medieval work, like Thomas Aquinas and that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of even in Reformation, all kind of stuff throughout the Middle Ages that's important to be able to read in Latin. And so those are the courses I teach. I have a lot of fun teaching these courses. I've been doing this for a while. I really enjoy this age group. And if the courses sound interesting to you, I encourage you to sign up. Thank you very much.